Well, good morning, everyone. Sort of check, Sam, am I ready to go?
Yes, you are, yep.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we stand and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I'd like to acknowledge our Mayor, Carl Asfor, who, in his passion to support his local community, has initiated this webinar and will shortly address you. I'd also like to acknowledge Wally Mehana, who is the CEO of Canterbury-Bankstown Chamber of Commerce. This webinar has been run in partnership with the Council and with the Chamber. My name is Mike Thomas, and I'm your MC for this morning. I'm one of the managers that work at Canterbury-Bankstown City Council. Myself and others specifically work across 3 teams focused on the business community, running major events and engaging with the broader community on major council initiatives. The purpose of this webinar this morning is to help businesses make sense of what government support is currently available to them to support them during COVID-19. If that's why you've come here this morning, then you're in the right place. It's a good start. This webinar has been recorded, but all participant videos have been switched off, so we won't see you. So if you've dressed smart for the occasion, or you've put on extra makeup, then thank you so much. We really appreciate it. But unfortunately, we won't be able to see you. If you've just rolled out of bed, then don't sweat. You can relax. We have a number of speakers this morning who will address you in the next hour, and there'll be a chance to address some questions at the end. We'll have approximately 30 minutes for questions. During this time, there might be a chance for you to ask a question directly, but if you do, we will only hear your voice. We won't see you. However, can I suggest that it may be easier for you to use the chat function during the session to ask your questions. If you don't get answers to them today, we'll get back to you as soon as possible within the next couple of days. If you need clarification on any information that's been presented today, you can go back and watch this webinar again on Council's website. We will also send you the information and copies of the presentation to your email address. As a quick overview of the agenda, we'll hear from Treasury New South Wales on what government support is available. Service New South Wales will then talk about their services and how to access this support. We'll then hear from a couple of local business people. We've got Ahmed from a company called XARY and Leah from a company called Collaborate. They're members of the Chamber of Commerce and are very kindly given of their time today to talk briefly about the tax and accounting implications of government support. I will ask all presenters to keep to their time today. We will be sending you messages when you need to wrap up. So we are definitely aiming to finish this webinar by 11:30. But before that, let's hear some words from our Mayor, Carl Asfor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. Can I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging for the many different lands that we're meeting on today. Can I also acknowledge all of you and welcome you all to this webinar. It's a special event and it's unfortunate that we need to host it because of the situation we're in, but we're here anyway and we're going to push through. Can I especially thank Andrew Lockie from New South Wales Treasury, Matthew Araza from Service New South Wales, Wally Mahana, I'm sure you all know, from the Bankstown Chamber of Commerce, and of course our accounting experts from XARY CEO Ahmed Trad and Collaborate Director Leah Ostermeyer. Look, I'm overwhelmed, but I'm not shocked by the number of businesses that have registered for today's virtual event. And you don't need me to tell you how tough lockdowns have been on the business community. And if it's not lockdowns, it's the mere threat of a lockdown. And uncertainty, mixed messaging, inconsistencies, all adding to your frustrations. And from what I'm being told, the cumbersome and complex access to COVID support payments. As I was going through the list of businesses registered for today's event, I noticed that you are representative of some 37,500 businesses in our city, whether it's hairdressers, cafe owners, dry cleaners, mechanics, florists, and of course, many others, from small businesses to some of our larger manufacturers, not forgetting, of course, our tradies and our construction industry. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you we're all in this together, as I think you're pretty tired of hearing those words.
I need to check the answers now.
And as you can see, homeschooling is not easy for all of us.
Mhm.
But I will tell you what I have seen. And I've seen the empty businesses and the empty streets. And I've heard stories of businesses just hanging on. I've also heard your concerns about how many of you are still confused when it comes to accessing support payments. And I'm really hoping that you get some answers today where we could at least help facilitate making life that little bit easier for the tough times that we're in. There are concerns like payments taking an eternity to filter through, difficulties navigating the website, not sure on the criteria for eligibility, what grants or funding your business qualifies for. And new businesses are, I don't want them falling through the cracks, considering they don't have any financials from 2019 that the government can compare to. So, another most common question obviously is what documentation you need to provide, what's the proof that you need to provide. These are all, I think, reasonable questions, and I'm really confident our experts here today will be able to answer them for you. So not much more from me. I hope you get something out of this, and on behalf of council, please take this opportunity to really get involved. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor, for your comments and for initiating this webinar. I think I speak on behalf of us all. Before I introduce Wally from the Chamber of Commerce, I just want to give a plug to the Chamber of Commerce. It's a group of dynamic businesses that get together regularly. And Wally himself, he's a consummate networker, and he's been very generous. I've certainly experienced that, and people in my team and with the council, we turn up, and Wally's always all too happy to just introduce around and introduce you to people. So let me give that plug before Wally Mahena, I'll ask you to say a few words.
Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike, for your kind words. My gratitude to your team, regard to Mayor, fellow councillors and the management at the council. This is a good opportunity about how our community are working together in the spirit of team and a spirit of collaboration. And the focus is about helping our community to be the ideal destination and to be the team, not in just the good times, but in the bad times. And this is an ideal moment that how we can showcase and support each other and back each other and advocate for those businesses who are falling through the crack. And I think the most difficult time small businesses are facing is the reading the too many pages of the rules and regulations and the policies, reading the fine prints, and then they discover themselves falling through the crack. So I want to thank XARY and Collaborate for extending their time at the moment to help with their insights. But most importantly, the learning experience from today is we are here to support each other. Don't hold back. You shouldn't suffer alone. Reach out to anyone from council or chamber, and we can advocate on your behalf all the way to the highest office in the land. So I won't take much of your time. Thank you, Mike, again, and we look forward to hear key issues from our local business community, and we'll see how we can provide solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Wally. And again, let me give a shout out to the Chamber. If any businesses online would like to be introduced, then either contact Wally or myself, and we'll arrange for that. I'd now like to introduce our first speaker today, who's Andrew Lockie. He's a senior analyst with New South Wales Treasury, and he's going to be talking about the grants and support that are available to businesses during COVID-19. So Andrew, over to you.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for that introduction. And thanks for setting up this session so that we can go through a bit of some information about what different support packages we have and what's been announced so far. I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me for just a second. And there we go. We should be. Can I just, Mike, maybe can you see the screen there? It should say New South Wales Government Business Support.
Not yet, Andrew. No.
Technical issues. There we go. How's that?
There we go. Well done. Okay, you're good to go, Andrew.
Wonderful. So yes, thank you again, Mike, and thank you for having us here today. Looking forward to sharing some of our insights and participating in a Q&A later on to address some of your pressing questions. But before I begin, I would just like to first acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So I know this is a session about what business support is available, but I first want to touch on what's available to individuals, because I think it links quite closely in with the broader business support package. And the cornerstone of this support for individuals is the Commonwealth COVID-19 disaster payment. So this is a payment for individuals who have lost hours of work, and it is available to individuals across New South Wales. Now, while this payment is available for business owners themselves that have lost hours, if you're a business owner, you can't receive both the Commonwealth disaster payment and also a business grant individually. But I'll come back and go through this in a bit more detail when I'm coming towards the grant on the next slide. Your employees, however, if your employees have lost hours of work, they can certainly access this support while you receive a New South Wales business grant. Look, there's also support for residential tenants, there's support for homelessness services, and also an increase in mental health services. And I know it is a tough time for everyone at the moment, so there are some numbers on the screen now on that bottom part about mental health support if you do need it. Moving on to support for micro businesses. So this is aimed at those businesses with a turnover between 30,000 and 70,000. That's an annual turnover between 30,000 and 75,000. These businesses that need to have at least a 30% decline in turnover. And I know that there will be some questions on the comparison period and not having the right documentations from 2019 or new businesses, and we'll come on to that later and in the Q&A session. But just as a starting point, the key criteria is that there needs to be a 30% decline with this in the lockdown period. So the micro business grant, it's a $1,500 per fortnight amount, backdated to the start of the lockdown, so that's backdated to the 26th of June, and it'll be provided for the duration of the lockdown. So currently the end of August, and hopefully it stays that way. Essentially, this means successful businesses will receive just over $6,500 over the course of about 9 weeks. Applications for this grant are now open on the Service New South Wales website. And although it's a fortnightly payment, you only have to apply once and you'll receive the full amount. I believe my colleague Matt from Service New South Wales will talk you through what the actual application process form looks like after I finish. But essentially what you'll need to provide in terms of evidence of your annual turnover. So this could be a business activity statement, evidence of your decline in turnover, as I mentioned. Now, this will typically be a letter from a qualified accountant, a tax agent, or a BAS agent, or it could be business bank account statements that enable Service New South Wales to compare the two relevant periods. You'll also need to declare that the business is your primary source of income. So, for example, that you make at least 50% of your income from this business, and that if you have employees, you'll maintain your headcount. Look, I know there is some concern at the moment in terms of the processing times for Service New South Wales, and I think Matt might touch on this as well, but it is important to remember that the Service New South Wales staff have to assess all this information for each applicant. The demand for this program and others has been through the roof, understandably, of course, given the current situation. But in any case, this high demand means that applications are taking longer than expected to assess and process. Service New South Wales are currently recruiting, and they're looking for more staff to bring on to help with the assessment process and help speed it up. In terms of what you can use the micro business grant on, you can use this funding to cover business expenses, which could include your own wages or salary if you're self-employed, utilities or insurance payments, or obtaining financial, legal, or other business advice that you need. As it currently stands, you are not eligible for the micro grant if you received the Commonwealth disaster payment since the Greater Sydney lockdown commenced. So if you received disaster payments since the 26th of June, you won't be eligible for the micro business grant, even if you only received one disaster payment. The reason for this is because the disaster payment is for a period covered by the micro grant. So you can't have two sets of government assistance at the same time, essentially. Given this, some business owners that have previously received a disaster payment before and stopped in the anticipation of receiving this micro grant or other business grants may instead decide to reapply for the disaster payment. Particularly now, the value of the disaster payment is equivalent to the value of the micro grant. So it's $750 a week or $1,500 per fortnight. Moving on to support with my tenancy, and you'll see on this slide the measures that we've got to try and support retail and commercial tenants. So the government enacted regulation back in July that prevents landlords from taking certain actions, such as evicting or drawing on a bond against an eligible tenant without first attempting mediation. These protections are for all retail and commercial tenants that have had an annual turnover of under 50 million in the 2020-21 financial year and are eligible for one of the business grants. So the micro grant, the business grant, or Job Saver. Essentially what this means is they must have had a turnover decline of at least 30%, given that this is the key criteria for all of these New South Wales business grants. Look, it's important to note in terms of the retail and commercial leases regulation, it doesn't give tenants an automatic right to a rent reduction. Instead, the government's offering land tax concessions of up to 100% for those landlords who do reduce the rent of eligible tenants. And we are currently monitoring the situation between landlords and tenants. We know it is tough out there, and we're looking to adjust the policy if necessary. When it comes to support for your tenancy, the New South Wales Small Business Commission is the source of truth for these protections. Their website has a series of FAQs on what the regulation says. It's also available in different languages. The Commission staff, though, they can't give legal advice, so they won't be able to advise on your specific situation, and they may refer you to legal advice if you do call up. The Small Business Commission's Mediation Services team are also available to help parties negotiate an outcome, negotiate rent relief perhaps, in a non-adversarial and a cost-effective way. For urgent situations, such as if your landlord has locked you out, you can still urgently apply to NCAT and follow the usual procedures there. Moving on to the next slide, which is, I guess, the cornerstone of business grants. So we've got first up the COVID-19 business grants. These are the ones that were first announced. So this is for businesses with a turnover of more than 75,000. The COVID-19 business grants are tiered depending on decline in revenue. So it's a $7,500 grant for a 30% decline, $10,500 for a 50% decline, and $15,000 for a 70% decline. As mentioned, this grant was part of the first support package that the government announced way back when we thought this lockdown was only going to be for 2 or 3 weeks. As such, it's only aimed at providing relief for the first 3 weeks of the lockdown. So that's the period from the 26th of June to the 17th of July. When the government realised that the lockdown was going to be extended, we developed the Job Saver program in conjunction with the Commonwealth, and I'll touch on this in a moment. In terms of eligibility for the business grants, as I said, turnover above 75,000 and at least a 30% decline in turnover. If you're an employing business, you'll also have to maintain your employee headcount. In terms of what evidence you'll need to provide, generally you'll need to provide some sort of documentation, although this can depend on what industry you're in. If you do need to provide documentation, this will typically include a tax return or a notice of assessment, combined with a letter from an accountant, tax agent, or BAS agent that certifies that you've experienced that particular decline in turnover that you're claiming. There are templates for these letters on the Service New South Wales website. If you're a non-employing business, you cannot receive the business grant if you receive the Commonwealth disaster payment from the 26th of June to the 17th of July. If you've got employees, however, they can still access the disaster payment, and you can receive the business grant just as to cover business expenses. Moving on to Job Saver, which I guess is the key support that has been announced more recently. This is a fortnightly payment made to businesses that have had at least a 30% decline in turnover. It's aimed at providing relief from week 4 of the lockdown onwards. So from the 18th of July to the end of the lockdown. So it's about 6 weeks worth of payments, or 3 fortnights. If you're an employing business, the payment is equivalent to 40% of your weekly payroll at a minimum of $1,500 and a maximum of $100,000 per week. If you don't have employees, the payment's $1,000 per week. Your weekly payroll is assessed in terms of when we're working out how much you're going to get. Service New South Wales assess your weekly payroll by referring to calculations in your most recent business activity statement that's provided to the ATO prior to the lockdown. With Job Saver, you must also declare that you maintain your employee headcount. Now, with all this employee headcount criteria that I've mentioned for the various brands, if you do lose employees for circumstances outside your control, for example, they resign, or for disciplinary reasons, this won't be counted. Now, if you're a non-employing business, you can't receive Job Saver if you received a disaster payment since the 18th of July. If you've got employees, however, similar to the business grant, they can access the disaster payment, and you as the business owner can receive Job Saver. Businesses that applied for and received the business grant will generally be automatically eligible for Job Saver, given that they've already demonstrated that they've had a 30% decline, but they will need to provide further information on employee headcount and payroll, just so that Service New South Wales can work out what the value of the grant is going to be. Just lastly on this slide, in terms of payroll tax relief, so Revenue New South Wales is offering a variety of different measures in terms of payroll tax relief. They're providing 25% reduction in the 2021-22 payroll tax liability for businesses with Australian wages of under $10 million to experience a 30% decline. Revenue are still working through what this actually looks like in practice, and we'll have more information on their website on this measure towards the end of the month. Secondly, they're also changing the due date for lodgements and payments of 2021 payroll tax. It's been extended to the 7th of October 2021. They're also offering deferrals if you'd like to proceed that way for your July and August payroll tax payments until the 7th of October 2021. That means all payroll tax could be deferred up until the 7th of October 2021, essentially. Moving on to my final slide, and I think I'm running a bit under time, so that's good for now. And this is about sector-based support, so support for individual sectors. Firstly, up the top there, we've obviously got the support for tenancies again. So it's important to note that doesn't just apply to micro businesses, that applies to all retail and commercial tenants that have a turnover of under 50 million in the 2021 financial year and meet that 30% decline in revenue criteria. In terms of creative arts support, so this is provided by Create New South Wales. It's aimed at providing urgent financial support for performing art venues, producers and promoters impacted by the cancellation or postponement of performances due to COVID-19. Applications for this package, they opened on Friday the 23rd of July, once again via the Create New South Wales website. Finally, accommodation provider support. So this is particularly for accommodation providers that lost bookings or had a number of cancellations over the recent winter school holidays. Businesses will get $2,000 for losses of up to 10 room nights and $5,000 for if they lost more than 11 room nights in cancellations. Now, the accommodation provider support, it isn't live yet, as Service New South Wales resources are being dedicated to delivering other grants. We'd suggest that accommodation providers apply for the business grants first, so either the 2021 business grants or Job Saver, or the micro grants if they don't make a lot of revenue, and to receive more urgent relief. And it looks like that is it for me for now. So that's good, just over under 20 minutes. But I will be back for the Q&A where we can go through in a bit more detail in terms of the comparison period and potentially documentation that are required for evidence. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for sharing those slides. I think the way you put it together was really clear. So thank you for that. Just a reminder to everyone who's watching today and part of this webinar, that if you do have questions, it's going to be best if you put them into the chat section. There's a couple of people in the team that are looking through the questions and they'll collate them and we'll address them at the end. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker. It's Matthew Araiza, and he's the Council Relationship Manager for Sydney Metro South for Service New South Wales. So Matthew, over to you.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Andrew, as well, especially going through those benefits and support there for these businesses. First off, I'd also like to begin today just acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet today. For me, it's the Darkinjen, and pay my respect for past and present, and extend my respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people here today. So what I'm going to go over today is I'm going to speak about our business concierge service that is currently working with the local community within the Canterbury-Bankstown, but also they're also helping with applications and also helping local businesses, which used to be face-to-face, but unfortunately due to the restrictions, we've had to suspend that at this stage. But what they're doing is providing that mobile phone call. So they are reaching out to local businesses within the Canterbury-Bankstown area and also assisting with our inbound call load as well. What I'm going to do is just share my screen. Just let me know if you can see my screen there.
Not yet.
There might be a bit of delay.
There we go. Perfect.
Fantastic. So first off, I'm Matthew Araiza. I'm one of the council relationship managers here at Service New South Wales for Business. I have 7 mobile BCs, which is now continually growing. So especially from these disasters and the current natural disasters as well, we have chosen to especially expand our team. For Canterbury-Bankstown, we have a local mobile business concierge called Lewis Matthews, which I'll go into more detail throughout the slide, but also provide some contact details for your local business concierge. For myself, I work with the local councils, just facilitating the information that gets moved throughout the community, and also work with our local chambers as well. Now, a little bit about Service New South Wales for Business. You would have done a lot of transactions in regards to Service New South Wales in regards to car registration, getting a license, renewing a license and so forth. Separate to that, there is what we call a Service New South Wales for Business. So what is Service New South Wales for Business? It is a one front door for government transactions. Service New South Wales is about making it easier for businesses to start, run, adapt, prosper, and it is a free service. So outside the grants that are currently on offer and the support in regards to COVID, we would support businesses through their lifestyle cycle in regards to setting up a cafe, what requirements may I require, whether it's a DA application, or it may be you're very new and you might need ABN registered or thinking about your business plan. Now, our business concierge service, which most of you would be aware of, is lodging a callback, which I believe most of you have in regards to the current grants and offerings that are offered throughout New South Wales. But we also have the phone service, which I believe most of you have called through. Due to unprecedented times, the call volumes are quite high, along with the callback requests. Our team are getting through those callback requests as quickly as they can. We have additional resources filtering through the team to help with those calls. So if you have not received a call as of yet, you will do in a very short time period. With that, I have got additional contact details at the end of my slide for your local mobile business concierge. Now, I'll go through that at the end of the slide. So what our mobile business concierge does within the Canterbury-Bankstown local government area is they do offer a face-to-face service, especially when the restrictions are in play. So they'll come out to your business, they'll come and understand your business, they'll be able to point you in the right direction in regards to the needs that you may require. Now that is face-to-face over the mobile phone. They can even do, if you prefer a virtual meeting, they can also facilitate that as well. Separate to that, we do have the business profile, which allows you to submit and track your applications through the particular grants that are currently on offer. This is a tool that is consistently getting improved and additional features added. And we do have a number of online tools that you can use, which I'll go over. One online tool that we use with businesses, especially throughout the current disaster. One thing we've helped during times of crisis is certainly around the guidance and support for business owners that have been impacted by the natural disasters and emerging issues, especially around COVID-19. With these particular grants, again, it has been a very unprecedented time, and we've had all staff on deck to help facilitate callback requests as well as grant applications and so forth. We have been helping businesses in regards to recovery, especially after the last lockdowns. We've provided a lot of on-the-ground support in relation to the recovery of those businesses throughout that first and initial lockdown, but not just in relation to COVID-19. We've had the bushfires, floods, and we've also had a mouse plague out in the west of New South Wales as well. Jumping to my next slide is probably one of the key requirements. I'll still continue with the slide after this, but these are probably one of the couple of contact details that I would like everyone to certainly write down. So my number's there. Again, happy to facilitate any phone calls, or if I can't get back to you straight away, please leave a voicemail and I will get back to you. But the main number that I would love everyone to certainly save in their phone is the contact number for Lewis Matthews. So Lewis Matthews is the Canterbury-Bankstown mobile business concierge. So his day-to-day, especially outside COVID, he works within the local community. He's out and about talking with businesses, understanding the feedback from those local businesses, and we certainly use that within the advocacy that we speak about with other agencies as well as council. So I'll leave that on the screen just for a moment, and then what I'll do is I'll just jump through to our website and just explain our website in detail. Happy to send this pack to everyone that's on the call today, and also provide those further details within the chat function as well. Let me just close off this slide. Bear with me for a moment. So one thing I would like to go over, especially because Andrew has gone over the particular grants and support out there for businesses, is just navigating our Service New South Wales website. We do have quite a useful tool called the COVID-19 Assistance Finder, which identifies not only business requirements, but also requirements for the individual needs. Every business and individual has different type of circumstances that they may be facing. So in regards to funding, in regards to their business, grants, programs, it may be in regards to safe work, mental health, and so forth. So as you can see on my screen, I've just jumped onto the Service New South Wales website. We've tried to make it easy in regards to looking for the COVID-19 page, especially around grants and individual support. So what we've done is created a clear yellow banner up on the top of the website that has a link straight into the COVID-19 page. Another useful tool is the search function, which you can use to find the relevant grant or program that you're looking to apply for or would like further information for. So if you are simply just jumping on the website, just looking to go through the Job Saver application, you can simply type Job Saver in there and it will take you directly to the page that you want to get to. Now, if I was to go to the COVID-19 page, it will take you to a page that will provide both individual and business support. One key feature that I'll go over in just a brief moment is the COVID-19 Assistance Finder. As we scroll down the page, you'll find all the support and resources for the individual. Again, if you would require business support and would like a detailed understanding on what type of business support is out there for you, you can click on the business support assistance available for businesses. You've got the additional support in regards to not just financial, but mental health. And also you can request a callback from a mobile business, from a business concierge. However, as spoken about before, they are due to unprecedented times, they are getting a lot of requests through, and it is taking us a bit of time to get those requests back. You will, if you have lodged a request for a callback from business concierge, they will call you. They are going through each request and ensuring that whoever has lodged a request will get a call back regardless. Now, if we scroll down to the COVID-19 Assistance Finder, it is a 2-minute questionnaire that you can fill out. And what it will do is identify what type of assistance is out there for you, for your individual and business needs. So I'm going to quickly run through this with you because there's actually quite a useful tool at the end. It's going to ask you some key questions, especially about your household, your current individual circumstances, whether you're training, whether you have a business, how many employees you may have within that business, what your current downturn of turnover is, and other key aspects, so whether you're training and so forth. So what I'm going to do is just quickly run through a couple of questions. Look, I am a renter, I do have dependents. It will ask you how old you are, what your current residential status is, a Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, what you're studying in employment. So, for example, most of us here are self-employed or operate a business or company. Are you looking to change careers? No. Looking to study? No. Are you a business owner? Yes. So it will jump straight into your business requirements. So business owner, yes. How many employees do you have? 1 to 19. What's your current revenue compared to the similar period last year? What matters to you most? with the COVID-19 impact, do you fit within any of these circumstances? So are you currently in self-isolation? For myself, I'm not. And also, again, what type of support matters to you most? It gives you the option to select 2 options in regards to what support you're looking for. For me, financial support and also mental health, and what your location is. So what we can do is I'll just type in my current location where I am at this present time. Now, what this is going to do is when you fill out this form, it's not going to ask you for any personal details. So we are not capturing any sensitive data. What this is going to do is provide you results. If you choose to, you can stay up to date in regards to the COVID-19 assistance by logging in. And what that will allow you to do is, if anything fits within your criteria, and if any additional support or grants become available, what you'll do is receive automated updates in regards to the options that you've selected. You can also save time and send it to your email address to look at it later. And as we scroll down, it's going to provide you a little bit more information in regards to the current COVID-19 cases near the location you've provided, as well as the testing centres. As we scroll further down, you'll actually be provided with a number of options. So you've got the finance for myself, because I've mentioned that financial support is very important to me, as well as mental health. It has found a few options for me in regards to those particular subjects. It will also provide you the business cost support, simply because I've selected as a business owner, and provide further information there. And it also provides me additional support in regards to workplace tools and resources. If I'm wanting to dig down, you can simply click, for example, what's really relevant to me is the business cost support. It will then go forward and advise you of what type of support is out there in regards to Service New South Wales. Throughout this page, you'll find that you've got the COVID-19 business grant, you've got the Job Saver, the micro business grant, which Andrew has gone over. It will also provide you additional information in regards to the other support that may be relevant to your business. Separate to that, again, it will provide you other supporting measures in regards to mental health was really important to me. So it would actually provide me some further information in regards to mental health, individual financial support, and as well as business staff support, and also workplace tools and resources, especially around safe work. From this screen, you can go straight into those applications that you're looking to apply for. So for a lot of businesses here today, you'll be either looking for the business grant or the micro business grant, and also the Job Saver. By simply clicking the business grant, it will streamline you straight to the page, while leaving the disaster finder in another tab, so you can refer that back to it later. But also you can go through the other options that may be available to you at that time. Now, with the business grant, Job Saver, and micro business grant, on the page, we are improving these pages by making a little bit more information clearly to see, especially around the criteria, the eligibility guidelines, and so forth. On each individual grant, it will provide you an introduction, the eligibility, which Andrew's gone over. But again, if you want to look at it further, you can do so on the Service New South Wales website. Some key information that you may require while filling out your application: evidence to support the eligibility, alternative circumstances, auditing requirements, what proof of identity that you need. I notice Wally has provided a couple of questions in the chat, which I'll be happy to go over in the Q&A, and also how to apply. What we've done is try to make it easy in regards to making the apply online very visible at the bottom of the page. And to apply, all you need to do is click the red button. From that, it's going to ask you some further details in regards to you logging into your Service New South Wales account. If you don't have a Service New South Wales account, you can simply go ahead and create one. Throughout your setting up the account, it's going to ask you to provide some ID documentation, for example, a driver's license, Medicare card, passport, Australian birth certificate, and so forth. If you've come over to Australia and you don't have a driver's license or passport or Australian birth certificate, I'll go through that within the Q&A just to identify what we can do there in regards to moving forward with the application. Throughout the application, it will ask you some further details in regards to your turnover, as well as ask you for those relevant documents in relation to the grant. So you may need to provide an accounts letter, your last BAS statement, as well as banking documents depending on the grant that you're applying for. We do allow for other documentation to be required if you're unable to provide certain documentation as well. While moving forward with your grant, there are some guidelines that you can look over that are stipulated on the website. Again, we try and make it as clear as possible. If you need assistance in regards to understanding the guidelines or even trying to understand the alternative circumstances, please reach out to us, whether it's through the local mobile business concierge, through myself, or calling our contact centre. With our high volumes of calls that are coming through, again, we are providing those additional resources to not only to take those phone calls, but also initiate those callbacks. There has been an unprecedented time in regards to the high volume of applications that are coming through as well. With that, we are pulling as many resources as we can to get through those applications as quickly as possible. We are going through and updating key messaging and also updating the website. But I do ask that please bear with us during this high volume of applications. We are trying everything we can to get through these applications as quickly as possible and try and get that money into those businesses' hands. Now, with that, we do have the Service New South Wales business profile, which I also highly recommend before your application that you go through and register for. The benefit, again, with the business profile, it does allow you to put in your business details as well as your individual details to not only track your applications, but there are extra support that is coming within the business profile itself. With the business profile, there are other grants that you may be able to, and programs that you may be able to apply for and take advantage of, which is one of the $1,500 rebate for government fees and charges, which will allow you to upload your receipts so you can get some rebates based on those charges as well. But in regards to following the website, I highly recommend that everyone go through and fill out the COVID-19 disaster finder, not only for the business requirements, but also your individual needs, just to identify what may be out there for you to apply for. But also, if you need any assistance, please contact myself or Lewis Matthews. I'll provide that number back on the screen for you, just in case you have missed it. Now, Lewis has been taking several calls in regards to people within the Canterbury-Bankstown area. So again, if you can't get hold of Lewis, please leave a voicemail. He will get back to you as quickly as he can. If you feel more comfortable sending an email, please send an email. I've been working with Lewis, especially for Canterbury-Bankstown and also a couple of key local government areas that have been affected within those key lockdown areas, especially with the additional restrictions. So again, please write down those contact numbers. I'm happy to take your calls. If I can't take your call at that very moment, I will give you a call back on the number that you've provided. Any additional questions, I'm happy to answer within the Q&A, but thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Matthew. And I'm glad you mentioned mental health as well, although we've been talking about some of the financial support. I think when you run a business, and I've run a business, it's not just something that, you know, pays for your food and your rent or your mortgage, but it's something you put your whole life into. Quite literally, sometimes your blood, sweat and tears. So this is very distressing to a lot of people, and we recognize that. And yeah, there is support out there, and I think it's important to mention that yeah, a lot of people are struggling with their mental health. I'm going to ask the next two business owners just to very briefly introduce themselves, because we've got a heap of questions. So we've got CEO Ahmad Trad from XARY Tax Accountants, and we've also got Director Leah Oystermeyer from Collaborate. So if I can ask you to be very briefly in terms of introducing your businesses, and then we'll move straight on to the questions.
Ladies first, please, Leah.
Ladies first.
Hi, I'm Leah. I'm an owner and director at Collaborate. So we are management consultants. We're based in Canterbury-Bankstown. So we've been there for the past 4 years trying to help the businesses of Canterbury-Bankstown area. We are strategists, so we try and help people grow their business. And I think that we've been called on by Wally and the Chamber to help people that need help navigating all of these grants and financial incentives, because they're quite complicated for us. So I can only imagine how complicated it is for everybody else. So we've been working with a lot of chamber members who, you know, need help getting their financial accounts up to date to see if they're eligible. We're doing that as part of our giving back to the community on the provision that we get paid, you know, if the grants go through, and you know, don't put extra pressure on people at this time.
Okay, over to me. Good morning, everyone. Ahmed Trad here from XARY. So thank you to everyone that's joined in today. A bit about XARY and what we do. We're essentially a multifaceted professional services provider. We've grown up in our own family business, and we've seen a lot of, I guess, pain points in growing, and that's been part of the building blocks for what we've built. So we've essentially got an accounting firm where we help clients with the very subject matters that we're talking about today. We've also got a few other things that we bolted on in terms of professional services. We have a law firm, a business advisory firm. We do technology and all things digital in that regard, and it's essentially a one-stop shop for meeting all those essential needs for you to be in business, grow in business, and survive business, especially in nowadays. Like Leah said, we are working with many chamber members as well, helping to assist them and guide them through these very, very difficult times that we're all going through. There's a lot of questions that I'm seeing coming through the chat, so guys, keep it going. That's what it's all about. We may not be able to get to every single question, but we will try to answer, because there's quite a few repeat topics there that we'll definitely get to, and hopefully give you as much guidance as possible. So
Thanks, Ahmed. Thank you very much. Okay, so what I might do is I might ask all of the presenters just to unmute themselves and put their videos on. I'm not sure who the questions are going to be relevant to, so I'll just leave it to you guys to answer as you feel fit. So I'm just going to have a look at the questions. So we do have a number of questions. So some of the questions are being collated together, which is great. Just as a point related to a couple of the questions, yes, we will be sharing the slides from today. So whatever email address you registered to be on this webinar, then we'll send that information to you. Okay, so question: people who are on a working visa, how can they access support?
I might take that one for now anyway, and if anyone else has anything to say. But people on a working visa should be contacting Services Australia to see if they can access any type of disaster payment. You know, I'm working for the New South Wales government, obviously, so I'm not fully across what type of assistance is available through Services Australia, but I would suggest that that would be the starting place to try and find out what support is available.
The next three questions are definitely for Service New South Wales, for Matthew. So Service New South Wales, so how many applications are you going through per day?
So unfortunately, I'm not part of the application, assessing those applications. It's a very, look, I know each application has different circumstances. So it can vary from day to day, purely based on the information that has been provided. So there's alternative circumstances for many of these applications. So again, I'll have to come back to the group in regards to how many applications on average they're going through a day. But what I can say is they're working day and night in trying to get those applications finalised.
Okay. I'm not sure you'd be able to answer this question. And how many days on average does it take to process an application? Yeah,
so look, again, it is a hard question to answer due to the unprecedented times. Now, with the application process, they're trying to reduce the times of those applications getting completed. I don't have a certain answer in regards to how quick those applications are getting approved. But what I can do is share some insights through an email in regards to how quick and how long it should be taking for those applications to be finalised.
Hi, Mike. My name's Jo. I'm also a management consultant at Collaborate along with Leah. Leah's leading this because she's head of our finance and accounting team. We can say what we're experiencing in regards to applications. So if we think about applications that are inside the box, we've had some of our clients get answers within 3 to 5 days. And some of them have already got accessed some of those supports.
Just on saying that, if they were eligible for the $15,000 grant and only received 10.5, but we're not sure what to tell them about the rest of the money when it's coming in, the application says done.
Yeah. So, but in regards to the Job Saver, have we had any success in regards to that yet? No, so we haven't even been able to be put in a position to apply. And I also saw in some of the questions in here from, I think the same ones from Fazler, Rahman, Dan, Michelle. A lot of people and our clients as well. We created a list of another 20 or 30 people who applied for the disaster that maybe should have waited for the next announcements. But a lot of those industries that jumped in to get the disaster payment first from our client base were in the hair, beauty, and gym businesses. And they're often paid week to week. So, you know, I think the announcement was done on a Thursday. A lot of the money for beauticians and hairdressers is made on a Thursday night, late night shopping, Friday and Saturday. So naturally, when that money didn't come through and they went into lockdown, they went for the emergency disaster, making them ineligible for other things. So I think that, you know, in regards to timing, how long does it take? I think some people that are inside the box, they might be getting processed quickly, but they're not quite getting what they're expecting. And I think that a lot of our clients are delaying doing Job Saver because they're not sure if they apply for something, what they might be ineligible for next.
So I think you've asked some of the questions that were there that we were going to go through. So is there, Matthew or Andrew, did you want to, at this point, just respond to any of those before I ask some of the other questions?
Yeah, certainly. So I'll jump in regards to the application. So very correctly, some applications are going through quite quickly. A lot of businesses are seeing money in their bank within 3 to 5 business days, and those applications have been worked through very quickly. There are applications that have certain circumstances that are taking a little bit longer for those individual circumstances to be assessed correctly. Now, in relation to the question for they've been paid the 10.5 and they still haven't received the 4.5. If you can send me an email offline, we can take a look at those.
Okay. This is a really important question because we're such a multicultural community within Canterbury-Bankstown. The website that you've gone through, I guess, for both of you, particularly the New South Wales one with the grants, is that translated to any other languages?
Yeah, so we do offer translation. There is an option on the Service New South Wales to have a look at the website in different languages. However, we're happy to take any additional feedback that may come through.
Okay. Just a point, some of the questions relate to some of the restrictions. At the moment, we can't really talk about those. We're not qualified really to talk about any changes in restrictions. So we won't be able to answer those questions, unfortunately. Another question that's come through, can your accountant interact on behalf of the business to get the required support? I guess this is both to you, Andrew, and to Matthew.
Yeah, I'll jump in. In regards to the application process, so one thing we have really put emphasis on is getting the business owner to register for the business profile. And the reason for that is a number of grants and programs do come available, not just grants, but that business profile is like, it's dedicated for the business. So it is a better alternative to have the person that is associated, whether they're the CEO, director, or sole trader, having that direct access to that profile and managing that profile, especially when it comes down to assessing. When they go through those assessments, it does make it very clear on the business that we're dealing with. So there are a lot of checks and balances that do happen in the back end, just to ensure the reduction of fraud and so forth that takes place. But moving forward, in regards to providing consistent updates, not just about grants and programs, it is better for the business owner, sole trader, or director, or whoever may look after that business to register. And then if they do require those additional documents, we're happy to include those accountants within the application process if required.
Okay, because I can see that there is a level of complexity, and for some people, they would want their accountant to probably understand things a bit more to sort of act on their behalf. So you're saying that is possible? Yeah, certainly. So if there is additional requirements in regards to their application, the assessor will send an email in regards to additional documentation requirements, and I'll try and clearly stipulate what is required. One other thing that we have added to the application process is we've provided a template for accountants to fill out, just to make that process a lot easier. Okay.
Just one point, sorry there, Matthew, if we can maybe expand upon that, I think will be of great value to all those attending with us, is perhaps some of the known issues that have caused some delay with the applications. Our viewpoint is when preparing these applications, be as thorough and as concise as possible. Don't try and do it too shorthand, because if you do, it inevitably results in delay. But from your end, like seeing, well, hopefully, I'm not sure what sort of insight you've got internally, but is there something that you could perhaps shed some light on to assist those that yet haven't lodged or are still thinking of getting their applications together, in terms of the level of detail and the links to go through, just to ensure a faster turnaround?
Yeah, certainly. So I look at it as a point of view. So if I know for an assessor's point of view is that we want to make it, the more you can document and provide a clear picture for the assessor, again, they're going through each document, they're reviewing your case. So ensuring that you have provided everything outlined in the guidelines. Now the guidelines, we've tried to simplify it as much as possible in regards to what requirements are out there or what requirements are required for your application. So again, if you are for example, applying for alternative circumstances, and you're putting your application forward, provide as much detail. So there's never going to be an issue providing too much detail. The more detail you put in and within your application, the clearer picture it makes for the assessor to go through your application.
Can you apply for alternative circumstances through Services New South Wales online?
So
because it kind of makes you answer questions that are not quite right. You know, I waited on hold the first time. I waited for 3 hours for them to say, just say yes and give their supporting evidence at the end, even though my answer should have been no at the beginning.
Yeah, so within the application, it does ask you some questions in regards to comparison periods for 2019. When you go through the application, all that we ask is that you answer the application truthfully. When you answer the application truthfully, it will ask you additional questions in regards to your alternative circumstances. Now, if you get to a point where you cannot proceed any further, it is best to speak to us before you do so.
Yeah.
That way we
That's what I did.
Yeah, that way we can
because it said, was your turnover for 2020 over 75,000? If you say no, you can't continue. But if you only traded for part of the year, it'll be an alternative circumstance. So technically it would have been over 75,000, but it's still prorated. You just have to, and then you provide your BAS and things like that. But it just makes you say yes to an answer that should have been no, just to move forward.
Yeah, I'll take that feedback on and pass it over to our product teams. But they are working through that application process. Again, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for our local businesses to go through that application process, and we're trying to filter that feedback through to our product team. So, again, if you do have feedback that you do want to pass on,
I think holistically with the application process, it's very much built around a very, I guess, narrow path of you just fit into the standard criteria, then you get the result. If you have these alternative routes that are an option, you're going to have to go through the entire journey before that's even revealed. And I think that's going back to what Leah's saying, if that needs to be incorporated at the early stages.
Yeah.
So not to go through, especially with hold times of 3 to 4 hours, and we've been hearing and feeling the grunt of it from various clients as well, that it's very frustrating to be on the phone for so long.
Yeah.
So I think
especially when it gets disconnected and then they just end up in tears. Like, I can't believe I just cried because the call got disconnected. So
guys, I'm just gonna jump in there because there's some really sort of we're going into too much detail there. So I'm going to move on with questions because we do have a heap of questions. But thank you. There's some good practical things there, and I think some feedback to New South Wales. I do think New South Wales are doing their best, and I really believe they are literally working morning, day, night at the moment to get through this. And it's frustrating when things don't happen quickly, but I'm sure they're doing their best. One of the questions that's coming up a lot is in relation to the disaster payment. So if someone's applied for the disaster payment, can they withdraw and then apply for the business grant because they can't apply for both?
Look, I'm not entirely sure about how that works with Services Australia and whether or not you can pay it back essentially. What we'd suggest in those circumstances is obviously try and reach out to Services Australia, have a chat with them, see if there are circumstances where you can pay it back. We certainly do appreciate it is difficult that the way that these programs were developed in very rapid circumstances, that the guidelines have potentially changed and you've been eligible for something, or you weren't eligible previously and you're now eligible. So you applied for different things and now it's made you totally ineligible if you've received a disaster payment. So we're currently kind of working through what those situations are, and any feedback that we get from this call is certainly important there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we understand like disaster is Centrelink, so that's federal.
Yeah.
And in the way that worked was for someone who lost more than 20 hours, it was 500 week 1, 500 week 2, 600 week 3, 750 week 4, and now they're aligned.
Yes.
With the
Yeah,
microgrant,
the NSW,
with
yeah,
the state, yeah. Which for someone had they, and the state would have backdated it. So that's a loss of someone
Backdate the
who,
micro grant, yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's a loss of $650
per week.
over 4 weeks
Yep.
by not switching out. But really what that would be, you know, for like refunding, it's not necessarily for our clients. It wouldn't it just be give the federal government, you know, the difference, the six, like, or just give the difference of 650.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
look,
because I'll also add, because we're a female founded business, and a lot of the businesses that were in the most dire straits were the week to week tradies, like hairdressers, beauticians, personal trainers from gyms, etc. That's a lot of female businesses and entrepreneurs that are 650 out in a week to week type of life.
yeah, look, certainly if that, I mean, it is a tough situation. That's currently what is in the guidelines. We're working with the government, with the Commonwealth, to try and work out what we can do to, I guess, streamline that process, looking backwards as well. Because like you say, you know, if you applied for just the first week's worth of disaster payments, you're ruled out of applying for the micro grants at all. So, you know, the course of that, you could lose over the course of, you know, 4 weeks of less payments. It could, you know, the sums do add up, and there is differences there.
Yeah, I think the people that jumped on to the disaster payment so quickly were that desperate. So if we think that they are potentially, as far as small businesses go, the most vulnerable of small business owners, that they jumped on within 1 day of knowing that, because they couldn't put food on their tables, or they couldn't pay their rent or their salon, or, you know, rent, like commercial and home, mortgages and things like that, that they were probably the most desperate, opposed to those that had some savings and thought, oh yeah, wait a minute.
I'm going to jump back in there. Sorry, Leah, and so your colleague. I think there's some really specific questions that you've got about your clients and what you've experienced that maybe you could address with Andrew and Matthew later, just so that we can get through all of the questions. So the next question, and I'm sorry I have to rush through this, so trying to get to as many questions as possible. Can my clients go back after the cutoff date of application if they currently don't have their records in order, and can they apply retrospectively for assistance?
So I might take that one to start, and Matthew, if you've got anything else to add, you can start. At this stage, I don't believe you can apply after the cutoff date. The cutoff date for the business grants is currently the 13th of September, and for the Job Saver and the micro business grants, it's the 18th of October. Now, it's important to remember, so if you do apply for the business grants before the 13th of September, you know, it's for those first 3 weeks of the lockdown, and for, you know, if you apply for the micro grants on the 17th of October, for example, you would receive the full payment of the micro grants. So it is retrospective in that sense. Did you have anything to add, Matt?
No, I think you've hit it straight on.
Okay, how can the government extend support? This is one that's come up a lot as well. In terms of newly started businesses, those who have started, I guess, in the last 12 months, or, you know, maybe even the last few months, couple of months, what support's available to them?
Yeah, look, I'll take that one as well, because it's certainly something that we're hearing a lot in a lot of sessions, and we're getting a lot of correspondence from business owners and from Service New South Wales about this type of a situation. So it is something that's currently being reviewed, particularly in terms of the comparison period, having to use 2019, for example, to compare to, and that's obviously not possible if you're a new business. So as I think Leah pointed out earlier, there are some alternative circumstances. But we're currently looking into, you know, whether or not those alternative circumstances could be applied more broadly, and whether or not businesses would be able to use a comparison period that fits their circumstance a bit more appropriately. Particularly with this would obviously apply to new businesses. So I mean, the key things, I guess, with new businesses, those that have started in the last 12 to 18 months, I suppose, they need to be able to show the annual turnover is over 75,000, and they will typically do that by annualising out a business activity statement. So if it's a quarterly statement, timesing the turnover by 4. And then the second thing, as I mentioned, is comparing having the correct alternative comparison period. So if it is a new business, for example, you may be able to compare the period of the lockdown to a period within the first 3 quarters of the 2020-21 financial year. So for example, you could compare the 26th of June, the fortnight of the 26th of June to the 10th of July with a fortnight in February 2021 before the lockdown. Now, generally with this comparison period, you need to provide a letter from an accountant that kind of certifies that. And I believe letters from accountants, the templates on the website are currently being updated to show when there is alternative circumstances, what the comparison periods could be. But as I said, we are hearing this feedback a lot in terms of, you know, the new businesses and other businesses. I saw there was a question about someone that had, I think, lumpy turnover in the chat. Same kind of situation. We're looking at what those type of businesses can do in those situations. So I guess the key point is, you know, it's currently in progress. The work is ongoing, and we're trying to develop something that we think will hopefully work for everyone. So keep your eyes on the Service New South Wales website for updates there. Okay.
Listener, next question. I'm not sure that any of you sort of spoke about this. I think it's more a federal issue. Ahmad, you might have something to say on this, or Matthew or Andrew. Payroll tax support. Is there anything available for businesses in that sense?
There is, Mike, and I did touch on this one in my presentation earlier. And in the
payroll tax is a state-based issue.
Yeah, and in the slides that went out, the slides that will be going out, there's some information on it. But essentially, Revenue New South Wales are offering payroll tax deferrals, and they're also offering, I believe it's 25%. Just checking my notes here, 25% waiver on your 2021-22 payroll tax if you've experienced a 30% decline in turnover.
Okay. There's a question
if
here
this
about...
continues, will you consider increasing the waiver amount higher than 25%? Because at the moment we're going to lock down until the end of August. If this continues into September, cash flow is going to be even harder.
Possibly. I mean, it's certainly, if this does continue, which I'm sure we all hope it doesn't, but if it does continue, we'll have to reevaluate, I mean, the whole range of support that we've got and what that looks like moving forward. So, and I believe payroll tax will be considered as part of that.
Okay. There's a question about micro businesses, about briefly explaining that. I think the questions may be around the definition of micro businesses. Are you talking about businesses with maybe up to 5 employees? That's generally a micro business.
So the way we've kind of defined micro businesses for the purposes of these grants, and I know it's not the same definition that might be used in different areas, but we've looked at it as those with a turnover below 75,000. So we know from our experience last year, we had several grants that were only available to businesses with a turnover above 75,000. We heard a lot of feedback saying that excluded smaller businesses that were in desperate need for assistance as well. So this year we've provided something for that kind of middle category of businesses that, you know, you still get your primary income from the business, but you're not quite over the GST threshold of 75,000. So we've defined micro businesses as those with a turnover of between 30,000 and 75,000.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to switch. Ask Wally. I'm going to ask you a question. If there's any sort of standout issues that your members are sort of raising with you that you might want to ask either Andrew or Matthew.
I think the key factor here, there's the economical impact that businesses are going through has superseded and exceeded the amount of support receiving from the government. So this is the question back to the government. What you're offering from support is a drop in the ocean. I think the call here and the the agony that's taken place, the government needs to reconsider the amount of support available or the percentage support available. What do you say, Andrew and Matthew?
Look, thanks for that feedback, Wally. At this stage, look, we understand that it is, this is not, that this support is not going to compensate businesses for their lost revenue. It's just, I guess, at this point, the purpose of this support is to provide some sort of immediate cash flow relief, or not necessarily immediate, but some sort of cash flow relief so that businesses can just survive. Look, it is good feedback though, and we can certainly pass it on in terms of the value of support just not really making a difference. And I did say there was a question in the chat as well about, $15,000, if you've lost 250 grand over the course of a month, what's that going to make? That's not really going to make a drop in the ocean, in effect. But it is also, so it's not just the business grant, you can also receive, Job Saver payments, which are 40% of your payroll. If you've got quite a large payroll, that amount could be up to $100,000 a week. So the level of support is tailored based on your business size or your business payroll. So hopefully in that sense, there is some level of, I guess, support for the cash flow expenses. But yes, in any case, we'll certainly take that feedback on board. Thanks, Wally.
I think just touching back though with support, there's two layers to it. There's one which is the cash grants, the other is relief. I think for a lot of the employing businesses, increasing the amount of relief with the payroll tax will go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
So look, ideally get rid of it. It doesn't make sense to be taxing a business just for employing people and putting food on their table. So that's one of those taxes that will just unfortunately, be always hard to swallow in any business, especially as they're growing. So ideally just abolish it, get rid of it. But at the same time, the New South Wales government needs to raise money from somewhere. So I think given the fact that we're going through such an extremity with these measures, even going as far as doing 100% relief during these difficult times will go a long way to help these businesses. So that's something that we'd definitely be advocating for.
Yeah.
Can I just say with the micro business grants, because I think there's still questions coming through about that. If there is alternative circumstances for businesses that just started, so if you can't show a turnover of more than 30,000 because you're a new business, you can use alternative tests, but it's probably best to get advice from an accountant to claim that. But yes, you may still be eligible. So it doesn't rule you out just because you can't show a turnover of 30,000, between 30,000 and 75,000 in that year.
Yeah, thanks for that, Leah. I also want to come back to your point there, Ahmed, on different types of relief that's offered. I mean, I didn't go into it, but the government is also, I think it was announced in the last year's budget or the budget at the start of the year, we've got a $1,500 voucher. I know that's also, a relative drop in the ocean, but it does provide some sort of relief for New South Wales government. And I think it's also available for council fees and charges. So there is a bit of a rebate there to cover some expenses, but it's not a great amount. I appreciate that.
Yeah, in regards to that 1,500, I think that also extends to car regos for the portion of vehicles that are used for business purposes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of our clients where they're like, I'm not a tradie, I don't pay my, I'm an electrician. So can I get it? Yes, you can as an electrician. But if you're not an electrician, for example, and have to pay state fees, then rego is one of those things. So that's they've been happy with receiving a little bit of something. So that was good. So thank you.
Oh, that's good feedback.
Yeah,
Just to add to that, Matthew and Andrew, are you just able to give us a quick rundown synopsis of the exact payments or expenses that grants can be used for?
Wait, are we looking at surmising right now?
Yeah, in terms of what the actual grants can be used for, what expenses can they be used to cover?
As in the business grants or the $1,500 rebate?
The business grants.
So the business grants, so the micro grant, business grant, Job Saver, they can all be used to cover, a range of business expenses. If you're a director or a partnership or a sole trader and you're receiving Job Saver, you can use it to pay your wages or your salaries for yourself. You can also use it to pay utilities expenses, insurance expenses, your rent if you're unable to receive a rent reduction from your landlord. You can use it to pay for an accountant or to get some financial or legal advice. So there's kind of a broad range of business expenses that you can use the grants on. And in terms of the $1,500 rebate, that's specifically for New South Wales government and local council fees and charges. So council rates, event fees, liquor licenses, food authority licenses and things like that.
Yeah, and just on that as well, through the Service New South Wales website, we've actually provided an extensive list on what you can actually apply for that rebate on. So you can find that through, if you need a quick search, jump onto the Service New South Wales website, in the search bar, type in 1500, and it will provide you further details in relation to what they could be used for.
Yeah, I think Michelle there, she's asked a couple of times just whether, you can pay wages. So I think it might actually lead into the next part of closely held employees. I think if Michelle might be maybe not on payroll. So she's worried that it's not wages per se, but it would be directors' drawings maybe. But Leah's probably got some questions around closely held in regards to the Job Saver Subsidy.
Okay, I think with Job Saver, because it's based on the last BAS lodged with the ATO. So if you're an owner or a director of a company and you only pay yourself like a bulk of your income in June, that won't be covered as part of your 40% rebate for Job Saver. Is that right?
Yeah, as far as I understand, that's right. So maybe that's something that we can take offline and thanks for that feedback, Leah.
Cool.
It's not, I think, I mean, there's a whole lot of questions we haven't answered, and I think there's, there's an opportunity for us to answer them and go directly back to participants. I do see that since, as we've been answering questions, the number of participants have been dropping off. I don't think that's through lack of interest, and there's still quite a number still on, but I think we made a commitment to finish at 11:30, and we will finish. So what I'd like to say is, actually, before I thank the speakers, there's a little team in the background that's sort of been making all this happen technically and fielding some of the questions and throwing them to me. So you won't see them, but I think I should name them because they've done an important job. So that's Susie and Sam and Martha and Michelle in the background. I'd like to thank them from Council who've been supporting this. From Service New South Wales, Matthew, thank you for what you've said today. I think you've been very clear. I know that you're under the pump and a lot of people are feeling under a lot of pressure. I know that it's not directed personally at you, and I think we'll get through this. Andrew, the same with Treasury. Thanks for the information that you've presented today, and I thank you for your ongoing support, because I know that you can be involved in answering some of the questions we haven't been able to get to today. Ahmed and Leah, and sorry, I forgot your colleagues.
Joe.
Joe, I shouldn't. So apologies, Joe. So Leah and Joe and Ahmed, you've generously given of your time today as members of the Chamber, but also subject matter experts. Thank you for doing that. And yeah, thank you for the support that you give to local businesses as well.
We're all in it together.
To have your input. And Wally, thank you for the partnership that we have with the Council. Thank you for what you do for local businesses as the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. And thank you for being part of today.
And Mike, I'd just like to say thank you so much for hosting this. It's been a fantastic experience. Thank you so much.
Okay, with that, wish you all a good day, and yeah, let's get through this together and support each other as much as we can. All right, thanks everyone. Have a really good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best.